In my mind, this question came up while researching my video, the top 10 worst named weapons in Destiny 2. I was digging through collections looking for crazy names when I stumbled across the weapon Gahlran's right hand. The weapon itself only ended up making it into the honorable mentions, and if you haven't seen that video, you should go watch it because some of the names in there are insane. But it wasn't long after seeing the weapon that I thought, what was Gahlran up to with this thing? So in today's video, I'll be using deductive reasoning and investigative journalism to try and solve the 30-second-old question, was Gahlran a Gooner? Now I think first we should take a look at Gahlran's build. Does he look like a Gooner? And I mean, yes, like genuinely built bar for bar what a stereotypical Gooner looks like. Now just because Gahlran looks like a Gooner doesn't mean he is one. I mean, we can't ever judge a book by its cover, right? So instead, let's go through the lore. Gahlran is mentioned in like a billion things, so there is so much up for interpretation, and that's not even counting every Gahlran spin-off that we can glean info from. So diving into the lore, I have a few passages to highlight. For one thing, it's very recurring that Callus calls Gahlran the Failed. Now obviously we can assume that this was about Gahlran's death and his failure to control the Hive via the Crown of Sorrow, but what if it has a deeper meaning? What if Callus is calling him that because he was a chronic Gooner and saw him as a failure because of that? Something to think about going further. Second, we have a quote from the Witch that you receive after completing the Total Victory Challenge. I'm assuming that the Witch is Savathun, since it seems like she was the one controlling Gahlran after the Crown of Sorrow was placed on him, which, by the way, is extremely suspicious, but we'll get to that in a second. First, the quote. Savathun says, "Gahlran is a quick learner. His deceptions serve him well. He serves me in return." This is another thing we could take at face value by saying, oh, Savathun just used him to kill Guardians or glean information from the Cabal, or we could put on our Goonology glasses and pry a little deeper into the subtext going on here. Obviously, he serves me in return is the main attraction here, but I'll get to that last. First, let's analyze Gahlran as a quick learner. Now, according to some more lore, Gahlran was only a few hours old before the Crown of Sorrow was placed on his head, and then his subsequent death at the hands of the Guardians. So not only is it possible that Gahlran adapted to his body and somehow the intricate world of Cabal politics, Callus killed 2 Cabal chiefs because Gahlran reported that they disagreed with Callus's plan for the Crown of Sorrow. It could also be possible that he learned how to goon in the short time frame of his life. The second part of this quote from the Witch is, "His deceptions serve him well." For this I have to ask, if you clone yourself and make it do things to you, does that count as gooning? Because it's you? Very philosophical, I know. But as for the third section of the sentence, we may not have to dig as deep. He serves me in return. What kind of serving are we talking? I think that if an entity enters your body and is served well, they had to have pleasured themselves via your body. I think this is the first piece of strong evidence that Gahlran may have gooned, albeit against his will. Thirdly, and possibly most importantly, there is a piece of lore titled "Am I to Cast a Shadow?" in which Gahlran asks Callus, "Am I to cast a shadow?" What is a shadow in this sense? Even in the full context of the lore book, this line is still more of an implied thing, with it not being a directly literal response to what Callus has said in the previous line. So let's dive in a bit. Casting can 1000% be used as a synonym of gooning in this instance. Like Gahlran was casting it out, or Gahlran cast all over the place. So I think it works, at least for us. Now onto the shadow part. Shadow, shadow, shadow. What if Gahlran's cast was a different color? Say black. You could for sure connect the word shadow to that. Connect shadow to Gahlran's emo nut. Wait a minute, duality second encounter. Suspiciously happens to be right after the Gahlran encounter. What if the duality bosses in reverse order is the recipe to prove that Gahlran gooned? Let's start with Keitel. It may not seem like we can glean a lot from this, but if we deconstruct her name, we get Kai and Atoll. The first of these is an acronym for computer assisted instruction, and the second is an acronym for above the line. So above the line computer assisted instruction. Gotcha. What comes next? Uroa is the third mini boss in the second encounter. This is a little easier to split up. U and ROA. ROA is yet another acronym, and this one means return on assets. So far we have, if you use above the line computer assisted instruction, you return on assets. This can already be led in a certain direction, but we'll continue. The next two mini-bosses, going in reverse order, are Kahawk and Emo Nut, followed lastly by Gahlran from the encounter before them. Working all of these into our sentence, we get, if you use above-the-line computer-assisted instruction, you return on assets via Kahawk, which equals Emo Nut. That comes from Gahlran. I've never seen more irrefutable evidence in my life. Just to top it all off, did you know that Gahlran was born in the ceremonial baths of the Leviathan? Callus has said so himself. Now, I know this content isn't really in the game anymore, so we only have old footage to go off of, but back in the day there used to be a thing called Prestige Leviathan, and it added challenges and slightly changed or added onto the mechanics of the pre-existing encounters. One of these encounters took place in the ceremonial bathhouse, and added an enemy type called the Oiled Bather. Now we have to ask ourselves, was Gahlran one of these oiled bathers? Was Gahlran oiled up? What was he doing? Now there wasn't much more I could pull from the lore on this, so I turned to gameplay. First, the Nightmare of Gahlran. He is pretty slick when you fight him. If he jumps into you at even a slight angle, he'll slide right around you, so that's gotta be a +1 for oiled up theory. Second, back when Big Gahlran was a raid boss, he would vanish after you killed him, leaving a thin green film all around him that dissipates. I would love to just assume this is oil, but there is one catch. When you killed the oiled bathers back in Prestige Leviathan, they would drop a pool of oil on the ground that you used for mechanics. That oil was white, not green. And knowing that Gahlran was a bather, this is a serious blow to the oil theory. But fret not! We can explain our way around all things. We know for fact that Gahlran got the Crown of Sorrow placed on his head, which is famously not only green, but also hive controlled. And the hive always have a lot of green going on. Gahlran also turned partly hive after the crown was placed on him, so who's to say that the oiled in it also turned hive? Plus you can tell Gahlran is fairly muted in his color palette compared to normal Cabal, so we can draw the conclusion that the Crown of Sorrow did in fact change the color palette of the oil as well, and seeing as the only substance close to oil on Gahlran is the green stuff, we must assume that Gahlran is oiled up like crazy. And lastly, I have a theory. A game theory on the shades of Gahlran. The lore calls them apparitions created using darkness. Now I think that these are Gahlran's offspring. Jumping into it, let's first look at coloring. These guys are for the most part entirely black, which we have already argued is the color of Gahlran's caste, or Emo Nut. And seeing as Gahlran wasn't born the typical way, rather spawning in via the ceremonial baths, who's to say his ways of reproduction are anywhere close to normal? Taking away the hyperbole, I'm just saying all those little tiny Gahlrans running around every Gahlran encounter are just his nah. I think all of this hard evidence has more than proven that Gahlran was a Gooner. There are signs pointing to it all over the place, and it's just honestly so cool of Bungie to put in an enemy that is relatable to the player base at large. You know what else is relatable to the player base at large? Subscribing to my channel. Everyone hop in, we doing weekly uploads for as long as I can, and I'll be posting some potentially interesting things. If you won't subscribe, fine, but you could always like the video. It's less commitment and gives me the joy of a dopamine hit seeing a little number go up. A comment is also a good option. I literally respond to all of them, or at least give it a heart, so there is no need for you to remain silent with your counter arguments to Gahlran's habit. Also, if you want to share, that's cool. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.